Welcome back. This is episode 22 of Books Closed.
This episode is sponsored by Tattoo Smart, your resource for digital tattoo design tools, and Tattoo Shirt of the Month Club, a subscription-based t-shirt company that brings you original and unique tattoo designs on a shirt every month.
The last few weeks I've been telling you about a giveaway where you can win a $500 gift card to TattooSmart.com. Well, the deadline has passed and a winner has been chosen, but you need to listen through this episode and I will announce the winner at the end of the show. This week I got to sit down with Juli Moon, who's one of the coolest people in tattooing, I think. And I think after listening to this interview, you'll probably agree. All of the tattoo history that we revere and hold so precious, she was there for it, and she's part of it. Sitting down and talking to her for 1 hour is only going to scratch the surface about her career of over 40 years tattooing and cosmetic tattooing, and she's been ahead of the curve on a lot of things. So I am excited to share with you now my conversation with Juli Moon. So, I'm here in Lynn, Massachusetts with none other than Juli Moon herself. How are you doing today?
I am doing really well. Thank you for coming all the way down here.
Well, thank you for having me. It actually was, this is one of the more convenient interviews I've done because it was about 1 hour from my house.
Yay.
It's great. Yeah, it's easy.
Good. And the roads ended up being really, really nice and clean instead of all snowy.
Yeah, we were worried about the weather this morning, but it turned out to be A-okay. I think we might be out of the woods on winter this year.
I think we're supposed to get a little bit more.
I'll edit out that I said that if it snows after this, before this comes out. So as we were setting up, I was getting your mic set up, and you said that you had a funny story about microphones, perhaps?
Oh, well, more about lining up.
Mm-hmm.
Before I started tattooing, this is back in the early 70s, for 2 summers in a row, I traveled with a carnival. My boyfriend at the time, he and I traveled, and through some strange act of fate, I became Sheena, the gorilla girl. See her change from beauty to beast, from girl to gorilla. And I was the Sheena part of a 3-stage illusion, and I had to line up with the mannequin who was the second stage. And so I had to line up perfectly with this mannequin. I had to hold myself in a certain position, and I would be put under hypnosis to become Sheena, to become the gorilla part. And if I was not exactly lined up so that the rheostat could project an image of fur growing onto me, the announcer would say, "Sheena, you are not yet in your right mind," and I'd have to move to the right. Or he would say, "Sheena, you have not yet left your mind," as he's putting me under hypnosis, and I would scoot a little bit over to the left.
The secret code of magic revealed.
Exactly. But it was a good, scary illusion. It was great. And I did not have to wear a really hot, sweaty gorilla suit all summer long.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that worked out well. I wonder what the version of that would be these days. It'd probably be some lame digital screen or something, and you wouldn't have that communication that had to happen. So, for those of you listening, many of you are probably familiar with Juli, but for those who are not, all you youngins, let's talk about how you got into tattooing. Let's start from square one.
Oh my gosh. I've been getting tattooed or becoming a tattooed person for 46 years. And I knew right away when I got that very first tattoo, which was a little droopy rose on my upper left arm, it's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it took me 5 years to find an apprenticeship because there weren't that many tattoo artists back then. And the fellow who tattooed me said, "I'm only going to teach my kids." And, other people were just too scary, and it didn't happen. I went to work for the Navy Department. I worked for 3 years and got an apprenticeship. I was in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington at the time, and I got an apprenticeship down in Richmond with Danny Fowler, who later went on to own the supply company Time Machine and the tattoo machines. And he was one of the few tattoo artists who was actually using an autoclave, so I felt very fortunate that he was that progressive. And he
was from the future.
He was. And he also knew a lot about Ed Hardy, who became God, in terms of art, in terms of technique, in terms of intellectual development. So I feel as though the year 1978 was very fortuitous. I got to meet Paul Rogers. What a miracle that was.
How did that happen?
Well, I was doing weekend apprenticeships down in Richmond, going from the Alexandria Springfield area, commuting down, tattooing on weekends, and tattooing out of my house during the week, where I would be practicing and I would ask for donations, and I would get, here's a pack of incense. And then one time I did have some clients go into my kitchen and eat my dinner, which was sitting on the stove. So it was pretty interesting. But I was
service tattoo experience with a free dinner.
With free dinner. And but I did learn, and I had to make the decision because I was taking piano, I was taking keyboard and learning how to read music again, and had the opportunity to be in a band, and I was torn between being a really, really good singer or being a really, really good tattoo artist. And tattooing won. I figured I could actually support myself being a tattoo artist. Whereas, my singing is okay. I can carry a tune in a bucket, but that's about all. And I certainly don't have the capabilities to be on some of these talent shows that are currently on TV. So I made the right decision.
Yeah, I was going to say, you picked the path that was less traveled for sure at the time. I mean, there were not a lot of tattoo artists, obviously, then. I don't have to tell you that, but... and it's probably a more sustainable career choice, although it may not have seemed that way at the time. Because to be a lifetime rock star singer, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, I realized a long time ago that I just did not have the energy for that. I didn't have what it would take to sustain that kind of life. But the tattoo life was absolutely perfect. Once I started tattooing, I felt as though I was in a niche that was perfectly carved for me, and that I was doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I still feel that way. It's been 41 years. I still feel that way. Although this aspect of retirement is starting to creep up on me.
Does it scare you or does it excite you?
A little of both, because I'm working on a transitional aspect of it right now where I still love what I do. I want to stay doing what I do well, and keeping in mind that I'm now an old timer, and I'm starting to know how the old timers of my generation must have felt when these new upstarts came along with their newfangled ways and their fabulous art and their just, the amazement that we were to those people. And I see that today, and it's like, wow, it's so amazing. It's so incredible what's going on in the tattoo industry today. And my mind is boggled, and at the same time, it's like, okay, I don't feel as though I can compete on that level, but there are many other levels where I can compete, and I can still stay viable. I can stay useful. I can stay, here. Stay somewhat relevant.
Yeah, and I think it's a very self-aware way to look at it, whereas a lot of old-timers, as you said, they almost clam up and feel the pressure of younger people or just any other people that are like pushing them out, or that's how it feels, as you get older. But to look at it in a way where you're saying, this is the same thing that I went through when I was the young person, that someone who came before me could see it that way. I think it's probably going to help in that transition to see it in that more of like an optimistic way, I guess.
Well, one of my goals along the path, and I haven't started working on this yet, except energetically, is to create the crazy little old tattooed people's old folks home. Because I think that we need one. I think we need a fun place where we can have lovely young people to wipe our butts and our drool.
and wipe your tattooed butts.
Exactly. We will be the most interesting people in old folks' homes on the planet. It's not going to be all morose and quiet. We're going to be raucous, and we'll have wheelchair races, and that's my vision for my dotage.
I like it. I think as time progresses, we'll see every old person's home will be tattooed people. At least for this generation of extremely tattooed people that we probably haven't seen ever before.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So back when you started to first tattoo, what did the rest of the tattoo world look like? Because it seems like you were in tune with like the people who are really pushing the envelope, who are almost probably outsiders in a way to like the core tattoo world.
Well, there were a lot of us younger people who started tattooing in 1978. There's a whole generation right there, and we were different than the old timers who were very closed off. And there a lot of old timers. That was the age of firebombing somebody who was setting up too close to you. That was the age of if somebody did something you as an old timer didn't like, you would have their fingers broken. It was scary, but the new tattooing was so incredibly interesting and exciting, and there were so many possibilities. I mean, because we were coming out of the psychedelic era. We had Lyle Tuttle. My personal inspiration was Janis Joplin, who I got to see when I was about 15. And it was just amazing, the thought of covering your body. There was something scary about it and something just so innately comforting. It's like, wow, this is so cool. And the first heavily tattooed woman I ever saw was Vivine Lazanga. And I had seen pictures of her in Esquire magazine from the convention in Vegas, which I think was in 76 or 77. And I was entranced. And I went from a couple of small tattoos to going to a little short sleeve to going to 3/4 sleeve. It's like I had to have that coverage. It was necessary for me. And I ended up evolving that into what I termed psychic armor, because it felt like it was coming from so deeply within, from such an energetic and spiritual point of view. It was like a 24/7 hug. And it's like, okay, I need that. In my particular psychology, I need this hug. I need this comfort. I need this blanket. And it suits me. And that's where I am. And I'm still working on it.
It's a very interesting way to put it that I think on this show we've never really discussed. I mean, I don't think I've had this conversation with anyone because we talk a lot about what it means to be a tattooer and the life that it creates around us all. But it's almost assumed that we're all very tattooed. And so I feel like I've never actually gotten into it. So it's interesting to look at it that way. And I don't know if I've ever even thought about it for myself that much, aside from it being such an inclination to get tattooed, the same way you're describing it, but I guess I haven't put the actual thought into it. And I can understand what you're saying totally. The psychic armor. It's so cool.
I feel it's strange to me when somebody says, oh, I have a lot of tattoos. And I never thought of it as a statement of ownership, but I am tattooed. It's a statement of being. And I tell people, I get approached by a lot of kids who say, oh, I want to be a tattoo artist. And it's like, it's not a job. It's a life. It's a completely different encompassing life. And you have to plunge into it on that level. That's what I feel. It's not just, oh, yeah, I could just, whip out a couple of tattoos and I will be great. And it's like, you still need to work at it.
And I think that's a way to break it down a little more specifically as to why a lot of tattooers feel kind of bummed out by all of these, people that try to come into tattooing willy-nilly, I guess you could say. They don't understand the weight of it. And I guess no one truly can when they first start to really understand the weight of tattooing and what it means and what you're doing to people and what it means for your life. But yeah, it's tough because we're seeing now that people are considering tattooing just another career path that you can take. It's like accepted and normalized to the point where a high school guidance counselor might say, well, you're a great artist. Maybe you should draw tattoo designs. Maybe you should try to learn how to tattoo. And it's just so different from, I started tattooing about 11 years ago. And even in that short period of time, it feels different than then. And I'm sure for you, from the time when you started, it feels like unrecognizable, the way that tattooing kind of works now.
You know what? I just, I have my own little world now. And of course, my energy and my interests have shifted somewhat, now being a mom and now a grandmother, and not getting out and doing tattoo conventions like I used to, not getting out there so much in the world, and just taking great delight when I discover that there's all this whole world of tattoo and YouTube videos and all of this stuff that is really alien and foreign to me, but it's a path of discovery, and I get incredibly happy when I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're excited by all the new stuff that you see, or does
Absolutely.
it make you, does any of it make you feel like it's tarnishing what you've loved about tattooing all these years?
No, because it's all how you look at it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's your perspective. You can either embrace it and see the positive, or you can go to the negative, go to the dark side of it and just hate it and just gnash your teeth. And it's like, what good is that going to do you?
Yeah. It's just going to bum you out.
Yeah.
And I feel like having discussions like this is maybe part of my own quest to find the positive in all of this stuff. And the more I discuss it, I feel less disturbed by it and more excited to find a conversation like this where we can look at the good stuff and enjoy what we actually are able to do every day and everything.
Well, that's one of the things that Danny Fowler told me a long time ago. He's like, tattooers come and tattooers go. And the really good ones will always find a place. And then that's something that Jack Rudy told me a long time ago as well. And he said, well, the bottom of the barrel is always really crowded, but there's always room at the top for somebody good.
Absolutely. So as far as the convention scene, in your earlier years of tattooing, now it feels like there's a convention or more every weekend. You could just work conventions every weekend around the country for your whole life if you wanted to. But how frequent were conventions when you were first starting to go to them?
Well, I went to my very first one in Houston, Texas in January of 1979. And I think that was only the second or maybe third tattoo convention there had ever been. And
how did you hear about it?
Let's see, how did I hear about it?
Did you see it on Facebook or something?
Yeah, right. I'm trying to remember how I heard about it. Back then, communication between tattoo artists was so incredibly different. You would find out about somebody, you would get an address, you would write to them and say, hey, could we exchange photos? And you would start exchanging photos with that person. You could have a great collection of pen pals from all over the world. And that was it. I mean, there was no internet. There was that book, The Tattooists. There were a couple of books. What Art, Sex, and Symbol? That's another early one. And back then, it was so rare to see the word tattoo in print that you grabbed onto and held onto every single word. Every single piece of paper that had the word tattoo written on it, you saved it because it was so rare. And right now, I honestly can't remember how I heard about it, but we did. We made the trek. And then shortly after that, I believe National Tattoo Association had their first tattoo convention, maybe the very next year. And there was one a year, and then there were two a year. And then, what was it, in 1982, I think that's when Triple E had a really incredible convention on the Queen Mary. And that was just the most extravagant, amazing thing anybody had ever been to.
So when you were able to mingle and meet other tattooers, was there ever any feeling of like the boys' club of tattooing? And for you as a woman in that time, was it difficult, or did you ever feel outcasted, or as if people didn't take what you did seriously?
I never felt outcast. I had some different tattoo artists like Brian Everett and Jack Rudy, giving me pointers, giving me handy hints about things. And then I had the wonderful amazement of Ed Hardy publishing some of my work in Tattoo Time magazine.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching. That was was amazing.
Amazing.
That was and it's still, I look at those and I look at the work and it's like, that was pretty good work. For the time I was doing okay. By today's standards, no. It's not hyper-realism or anything, but It's like.
But that's the ultimate stamp of approval. I mean, even now, but especially back then. I mean, those are like Bibles of tattooing that people are still buying new copies of and still looking at as like to learn about the building blocks of something that was before they got into it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing to be included in a collection like that.
I'm still honored.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I guess maybe you had a unique experience in that you were the upper echelon of women tattooers ever. Does it ever feel like that? You seem too modest to look at it that way.
Yeah, I really do, because this, it's kind of like eternity. No matter where you are, there's always more eternity ahead of you. So
Sure.
even right now, I feel as though as good as I get, as good as I am, there's always room to grow. There's always room to get better. There's always room for improvement.
So what is it that keeps you still engaged with tattooing?
Well, I've been doing it so long, and it's like, what else am I going to do? I could write a book. Maybe I'll do that. But I would still have to show up at the studio and tattoo every day.
Right. But is there something in particular, like, do you feel like you're still on the quest to learn as much as you ever were?
It's had to take a slight backseat just because I have grandkids, and they're very time consuming.
Yeah. So priorities shift a little bit.
But yeah, in terms of still learning, there's so much to learn. I'm not as good as I want to be. I still have a quest to get better. And I've been tattooing 41 years, and I keep telling my clients who keep begging me not to retire that it's like, okay, I'm going to make it to 50, and then we'll see after that.
Yeah. Give them a warning.
Exactly.
So then come in and get all their tattoos finished.
But one of the things that I appreciate about my attitude now is that I've always believed in matching the artist and the project. So I've got 3 great guys working with me who've been with me for a long time, and they're each brilliant at what they do. And I recognize that if somebody asks me to do something that I don't think appeals to me, or I don't think I will do as well as one of the guys, I'll say, I don't do everything. Ask Dorsey. Ask Chris. Chris is our watercolor expert. Ask Troy, who does amazingly beautiful, lyrical, body-encompassing work. And I have started doing more of the paramedical, more of the nipple areola repigmentation, more scar tissue matching, things like that.
Would you say that your clientele that you get for that sort of work is much different than the more decorative tattoos clientele that you've had in the past? As far as how you have to deal with them or how they approach you?
Well, some of them have no experience with tattooing, have never been in a tattoo studio. They were referred by their plastic surgeon to come see me. And that's one of the reasons I like our studio looking more like a fairy garden as opposed to anything else. I declared this to be a drama-free zone, and pretty much it is a drama-free zone. I like my room to be all kind of whimsical, pink and sparkly. I like whimsy. We like channeling the entity of silliness. That usually precedes great creativity, and it's also very calming. I like presenting a calm and soothing atmosphere for my clients, where they can come in, shut away the outside world, and just relax.
I can definitely see how that would come across in here. This is unique to any other tattoo studio I've been in a very cool way.
Thank
we were
you.
talking about it as we were setting up, but you can kind of tell if you're watching this interview that this room is completely pink. The floors aren't pink, they're just wood. But the rest of this room is very pink. And there's a lot of cool stuff all over the place. And the ceiling has pink tiles, and it's very unique for a tattoo studio to look like this. And I can see how for a non-tattoo person, walking into here must be such a relief to what they're expecting to probably walk into.
Well, it would be non-threatening, but also energetically, pink is the color of unconditional love. So I really like to surround myself with that kind of energy because it is an exchange of energy that we do.
Yeah.
I'm learning also more, in addition to tattooing, I'm starting to learn more about quantum physics and the science behind what is our energy exchange and how far-reaching it is.
Yeah, there's definitely a massive energy exchange in tattooing as far as being physically connected to someone for hours at a time. And then also just, like we mentioned before, just the transformation that comes from it. I think there's a lot of subtleties to it that we may not consider day to day because it's almost too much to internalize.
Well, and I don't think that internalization happens instantly. You go through the healing process, and I have clients who call me a couple of weeks later. It's like, wow, this is so much more to me than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, because you almost have to live with it for a certain amount of time before you can really understand that it's part of you now.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's new, it just feels like you got a new shirt and you're wearing a new shirt for a day. But when that new shirt stays on you for 3 weeks in a row, you start to look at it probably differently, I would imagine. This week we are sponsored by Tattoo Smart. Tattoo Smart is a marketplace for forward-thinking tools for tattooers, artists, and designers, empowering them to learn new digital skills and improve their design workflows. They collaborate with tattooers to create brush sets for Procreate and Clip Studio Paint, reference eBooks, digital color tools like the Abbott Color Wheel, and design and software tutorials. Tattoo Smart gives you the tools to speed up the process of conceptualizing and rendering time-consuming elements, allowing you to spend more time focusing on the composition of your tattoo design. You can check out all of the Tattoo Smart tools and tutorials at tattoosmart.com. And while you're there, check out the new Third Dimension Tattoo Design tutorial by Jerry Magny. In his most recent tutorial, Jerry shows you how to use 3D models in Photoshop to see how your design will fit on the body and promote your work to prospective clients. If you've ever wondered how tattooers create those rad videos of their designs on 3D models, this tutorial will walk you through it step by step. Find out more and get Third Dimension Tattoo Design by Jerry Magny on tattoosmart.com. We have officially entered the future. And don't forget, use discount code BooksClosed to get 15% off any tools on the site, one use per customer. So make sure you load up that cart and use discount code BooksClosed to get 15% off. And that's all at tattoosmart.com. We are also sponsored by Tattoo Shirt of the Month Club. Tattoo Shirt of the Month is a subscription t-shirt business geared to bring you an original and unique tattoo design on a t-shirt every month. To join, go to tattoo-sotm.com. That's tattoo-shirt of the month abbreviated. Pick your size, enter your card number, and you're done. The Tattoo Shirt of the Month subscription is only $15 a month plus shipping. As an added bonus, you'll receive a free shirt before your monthly subscription starts. All of these shirts are designed by tattoo artists only, and they are constantly looking for new tattooers to submit designs for their shirts. So this is an opportunity for you tattooers listening that not only can you pick up a sick new tat shirt each month with a subscription, but if you're compelled and you've got all these designs lying around, you could submit your design and it could end up on a t-shirt that will go out to the whole club. They start out by paying $100 and go up depending on the finalized design submitted. So this is a great opportunity for everyone to get involved on both ends of the business. Sign up today at www.tattoo-sotm.com and check them out on Instagram and Facebook at TattooSOTM. And if you have submissions or any questions at all, feel free to email them at tattoosotm@gmail.com. The best way for you to support Books Closed is by supporting our sponsors, so please check out Tattoo Shirt of the Month Club and our friends at Tattoo Smart, and let them know that you heard about them on Books Closed. But you've been doing cosmetic tattooing since the 80s.
Yes.
At that time, were there many other people doing cosmetic tattooing at all? Because I feel like there's been a lot of advances in the last however many years, but in the 80s, I don't know how many options people had as far as artists who were offering that.
I don't think there were very many people doing that. There were some. And I started out being self-taught, which was a little scary.
Trial and error.
Yeah. Well, the first cosmetic tattoo I did was on our landlady down in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And she was a feisty little thing. And she said, if you can put an eagle on somebody, you can do eyebrows on me. And I was terrified and I didn't know anything about it. But it's like, okay, she's a cosmetic expert, so she can guide me and we'll do the tattooing. And we did. And she loved it. It was a great convenience for her. She didn't have to pencil her brows in. And I started understanding how, okay, it's a convenience. People don't like standing in the mirror for hours trying to make sure that their eyebrows are even. This is something I can help people with. And I tell my clients today, I exist as a convenience for you. I don't believe in fashion eyebrows. I believe in something that looks very natural, that's fairly soft. And I don't want you to be noticed on account of your eyebrows. I want people to say, wow, you look really good. And they can't quite put their finger on what it is.
And I'm sure that comes with a maturity in taste and everything, because I feel like eyebrow trends in the last couple of years have gotten crazy to the point where I, who am not hip to any of it, can notice like statement pieces on people's foreheads sometimes. And I can imagine not wanting to do that to someone, even if they think that that's what they want.
I turn down those kinds of jobs because I don't. I've lived long enough to see eyebrows go thick and go thin.
Sure.
And I've started doing some corrective work on some of the more extreme, microblading style of eyebrows that are so intensely arched, and women didn't realize they would look like Cruella de Vil. And so I've started doing a few little corrections on those extreme peaks. It's like, I don't want to look mean. And somebody else said, oh, yeah, it makes you look like you're in resting bitch face.
Permanently.
Right.
So as far as the nipple tattooing goes, which I think is so impressive, the result that you can get from that sort of thing. It looks, I mean, the photos that I was checking out your website before, and just the photos of the examples, it's really convincing. I mean, is there like a lot of emotional weight that comes with doing that? Or are you used to kind of where you have to exist and emotionally while these people are, getting the nipples tattooed on them after breast reconstruction and everything?
It's a huge change for my clients, but the major change came along with their mastectomy and reconstruction. That was the first, because you are left with varying degrees of scarring, and you don't look like you used to look. And for the most part, you end up with a Barbie doll breast mound. And some women elect to get nipple creation surgery. And that's okay. I mean, they have a 50-50 chance of flattening out. But
It's just like a little pinch of nipple skin. Okay.
Varying degrees of success depending on the skill of the surgeon. Some of them look really, really cute, and some of them not so much. But to put a color that closely matches a client's skin tone, and to make the illusion of dimension. That's why I characterize it as restorative 3D nipple areola illusion tattooing. Going back there to the illusion of Sheena the Gorilla Girl. It's illusion. And if you can create this illusion on canvas with oil or acrylics, colored pencil, you can use tattoo pigment to create the illusion on someone's breast mound. I mean, if you're doing a nude, if you're doing a tattoo of a pinup girl and you want to make it photorealistic or somewhat realistic, you're going to be using similar colors and similar techniques. Is the nipple going to have a highlight, a cast shadow? I went to a paramedical tattoo class back in I think it's like 2000, 2001, out in California. And the practitioner who was working on her doctorate said, just scritchy scratch all around it. Make it look like a piece of pepperoni. And I was like, oh no, they don't look like a piece of pepperoni.
I mean, they could, but that's not what people are going to want.
And
I can do pepperoni.
Right. And it's like, no, you want it to look soft. You want it to look natural. You don't want it to have an outline.
Right. Yeah, of course.
You don't want it to look like a Target logo.
A big traditional nipple with a thick black outline, whip shaded from one side. That'll do the trick.
Oh my gosh. So that was interesting to learn that I had something to offer that was not currently being offered. Now a lot more people are getting into it, and sadly it's needed because
Right.
a lot more women are being diagnosed with breast cancer, and a lot of hospitals are telling their patients, oh, well, we could do it here in the office, but we use the kind of color that we use doesn't last but a month, and you'll have to come back every single month to get it freshened up.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's just
Get your hair cut, get your nipples.
right. And that's just such a bizarre thing to say, but then that's just to deter the patient from wanting to come there to get it done, because
Right.
it's
Shouldn't they just say that they don't do it?
well, I think they have to offer it, or at least pretend to offer it. I'm not sure how insurance works that way.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that would make sense. Because I would think there's enough people that they can refer. I'm sure you get referrals all the time. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it, that this whole thing is kind of born from necessity that maybe wasn't there as much in the past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I mean, when you consider years ago, My mother was my my first nipple areola client, and that was back in, oh gosh, 87, 88, somewhere around in there. And she had gotten her bilateral mastectomy back in 1976. Reconstruction was not automatically offered. So she and my father paid privately for her reconstruction in 1980. And she had the Barbie doll breast mounds and just had this great idea. Hey, why don't you try this? It's like, wow, that's a good idea. Okay, I think I will. So we did.
Wow. So that was like a long journey for her.
It was. But my mother was incredibly positive. She was a Reach to Recovery volunteer, which that organization I don't believe is in function anymore, but she would go into a woman's hospital suite the very next day and say, okay, which one's real, which one isn't? You know, I have a smile on my face. I'm walking, I'm talking. You can survive this, and you can survive it well. You can still smile. Your life is not over on account of this surgery. So my mother was a huge, huge influence.
Were your parents supportive of your tattooing from the start, or did it take a little while to warm them up?
It took a little while. I think they were kind of horrified at first. That's not the life path that they had envisioned for me. But of course, my father, being a lifer in the Army, you know, had envisioned me marrying a young second lieutenant under crossed sabers at Arlington Hall Chapel. And it's like, okay, that's not me. You're talking to your hippie wild child.
Do you think they would have been less alarmed by you being a rock singer?
Probably not. That would have been much wilder than being a tattoo artist.
Yeah. So all of your career paths you were doomed anyway in the eyes of your parents, at least at first.
Exactly. But that's what old souls are. We're here to show that you can be different and it's okay.
Right. I guess by the time you're tattooing nipples on your mom, then everything's cool.
Well, I think my mom first got a clue about it when she and my dad went down to Disney, because that was her favorite place on the planet. And they were in Disney shortly after one of the women's conventions in Orlando. And she saw somebody with a lot of tattoos, just randomly on the Disney property. And she went up and said, "Oh, you have tattoos. My daughter is Juli Moon." He's like, "Wow, your daughter's Juli Moon? I know who she is."
That's very cool.
Yeah. And then she's like, "Oh, well, maybe she can do okay in this."
Yeah. But again, that's like unique to you, because most tattooers at that time probably didn't have that experience with their parents running into someone who knew of them, unless it was local.
Right.
So to switch gears a little bit, I wanted to talk a little bit about that old interview that you and George had done, because I love that video.
Right.
I love the video, and I've got it. And when I first started working at Hobos in 2014, George had shown it to me. And I helped him. We uploaded it to YouTube, so it's on YouTube now for the last couple of years. But I'm going to put it on booksclosepodcast.com. Everyone listening, if you want to check it out, there's an amazing interview with Julie and with Tattoo George, who worked at Hobos with us, and he had been there since the early 80s as well. And it's so funny just the yin yang of you two as tattooers. I think it was really a successful way to show two very different sides of tattooing at that time. Whereas in Portsmouth, they were like very much a street shop, pick off the wall, get him in and out. And then it showed you, and you were drawing on tattoos. It was around a woman's waist, and you had your markers out. It wasn't as beautifully pink as this room, but it seemed like a much more serene setting instantly. Like you could notice the difference of it. So what was the experience like filming for that at the time? Was that the first interview that you had really done that was on film?
Let's see. Let me think. You're going back quite a few years. That was the first one. That was the first one that I did in when I first moved to New Hampshire in 1990, and that interview happened fairly soon. I mean, within the first year.
Juli Moon is one of the top female tattoo artists in the country, currently working at Jim's Tattoo in Seabrook, New Hampshire.
I like to work directly on the skin. I like to take a pen and draw and create directly on a person's body, because I get a nice feel for the contours of the body and how a design moves with the skin. And it was just amazing, and I always thank George for that, because he recommended to the film crew that they interview me as well. And I was just so thrilled. It's like, wow, this is the ABC affiliate. This is really awesome. This is an amazing. It was a show called Studio 7. And I thought, what a cool idea, because they were getting tattooing. There was a segment about Yo-Yo Ma.
The famous cellist, and then Ben and Jerry's.
Yes, and Ben and Jerry's. And I thought,
What an
I
episode.
like this because it's all art. And I know the critics did not like the Boston Globe had some terrible things to say about it. And it's like, well, too bad for you, because it's out there in the world and it feels really, really good to have it there.
And how cool that the people who made the show had the foresight to do something like that.
Yeah. And in fact, it got such bad criticism that I think that was the last episode of Studio 7 that they aired.
You shut him down. Well, it's probably because of Yo-Yo Ma. Nobody likes his playing. It's offensive. He doesn't respect what came before him. I actually have seen Yo-Yo Ma perform. It was a powerful experience.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, we'll talk about that on my cello podcast that I'm starting next month.
Well, I have a Yo-Yo Ma station on Pandora.
Perfect.
It's not any different than it was 35, 40 years ago. Women are getting tattooed, men are getting tattooed. It's just a statement they want to make.
But yeah, that video is so cool, and I recommend everyone go to the website and check that out, because it shows a glimpse in time of tattooing where it really felt like something. It felt like you guys were on the cusp of, part of tattooing that when it really transformed from like street shop tattooing with limits and shitty, mean people and stuff, and it showed just like a much different angle than was probably being presented publicly anywhere else about tattooing.
Well, there was a certain attitude with some of the up-and-coming people, but also some of the old-timers, that you had to be really crusty. Like, people came in specifically to get the abuse, and it was necessary for you to just be a complete asshole to the people who walk through the door.
Yeah, and some people still feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
Because they feel that they're protecting something. But I think it's funny when someone who wasn't there for that is like carrying that torch. It's like, that's not really your torch to carry. Like, you're trying to be what you think you're supposed to be, but why?
Right.
Why convince yourself you have to be an asshole when you can just be yourself, which is probably better.
Yeah. I'd rather be more welcoming. And, well, water seeks its own level. And that's vibrational as well. So the kind of people we get in here, for the most part, are fairly thoughtful. They've put a lot of effort into their thought process concerning the tattooing they want to get.
Yeah.
And they know that there's a wait. We're not here for instant gratification. Every now and again, somebody will slip in as a walk-in, which is always amazing. But for the most part, we'll get emails, we'll get phone calls, and we exchange a lot of information prior to the person ever walking through the door.
We always used to joke about it at the shop where we can almost know whose appointment was walking in just from the way they look almost. We're like, oh, that's Bill's client or that's Spencer's client. 'Cause we just know the kind of clients that we each attract. And it's funny that it could be so specific when seemingly we all feel like we tattoo similarly and we all have a similar attitude and we all deal with our customers and treat them in a similar way. But yeah, I can imagine that your clientele must be attracted to just the sensibilities that you put out on your website and in your studio and everything. One part, to go back to that interview, that I thought was interesting is that it was talking about tattooing, and it was showing, I think it started out showing George and Hobo and those guys with all their motorcycle buddies out on the street being goofballs and stuff and joking around. And then he talked a little bit, and then it went into almost like a history thing about tattooing, where it more or less highlighted the negative connotations of tattooing, which I thought was kind of lame to do.
A way to alienate, a way to affiliate. Tattoos have also been used to isolate. It has even been suggested that victims of AIDS be tattooed.
Do you think that maybe they could have done without that in that interview, if they're trying to show tattooing in a positive way? Or do you think that there was value to like really highlighting the negative side of tattooing in the past, like historically?
I think I would have preferred to leave it out. I haven't seen the segment in quite a while,
Yeah.
but now I'm going to go look at it again.
Yeah. Because right after they showed a clip of you in like an interview setting, and you are almost, I'm sure they're prompting you and asking questions and stuff, but you're talking about almost like justifying or like vouching for being tattooed just in general, which I think is so interesting because now that's just not really a thing because tattooing is so accepted that you probably don't have to spend your time like validating someone who has a tattoo. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Favorite saying is that the same kind of people get tattooed who go to the grocery store because it cuts all across every social strata.
It's just such a glimpse into that time. I feel that when they have like a high caliber tattoo artist at an interview and you're spending the time, they're not talking about your work or your ideals or anything about it, but you're just like defending people who have tattoos. I thought that was very funny. Like around the time this was filmed, how normal was it for people to be freehanding tattoos? Like people that you worked amongst anyway.
Not all that usual and customary because most studios were based on Flash. And to draw on somebody was fairly unusual.
Did you feel like you had to work harder to gain the trust of your customers, or were they excited by the fact that something was like extra custom and extra just done specially for them?
Yeah, the extra custom part or just part of the journey, because they were already enrolled in the idea of having a wonderful, expansive sort of tattoo become part of their being. Mm-hmm. And that was just part of the process. And it was very time consuming. And I think the techniques have gotten a lot better, for sketching on people, for doing, I'm seeing all this amazing digital stuff coming out now.
Mm-hmm. Have you messed with any of that?
Not yet, no. I mean, the guys are very adept at Photoshop.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like having these tools can hinder the development of a younger tattooer? Like, do you think it's important to start the most basic way to like truly learn the steps, or do you think that it's just as valid if you learn drawing on a tablet or a computer kind of setup?
Oh, wow. I think it depends on the person. And it used to be that if somebody wanted to apprentice, we could set them down to with a pen vise and make lots of acetate stencils, because that was a good way to strengthen your hand. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't even begin to imagine having somebody make an acetate stencil anymore.
Yeah, let alone use one.
Right. Exactly. Use one and successfully outline a tattoo.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine. I never had to do that, but I know that even with the stencils we use now, when I first started, it seemed impossible that I would ever complete a tattoo without losing at least part of the stencil.
Well, you have to become very adept at just piecing parts back onto the part you lost.
Right, yeah. So we were just discussing off mic about ego, tattooers' egos. And I think it was only a couple episodes ago, I was talking to Robert Ryan, and he was stressing the importance of being humble, which goes exactly in line with what you were just saying to me. And I totally agree. So I guess we'll start here. Why do you think that it's easy for a tattooer to fall into a pattern of flexing their ego?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the maturity or lack thereof of the specific person. Because I think once you develop more emotional maturity in your life, then you understand your place in it. You understand what you're good at, that many other people are as good as that, and some people are better. And then there are a lot of people who are much, much worse, but it's becoming comfortable with yourself, and you don't need to convince everybody you're the best. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm the best I can be today. I can function to the best of my ability today, and always strive to be better. And if you're always striving to be better, there's not really room for a whole lot of ego, whole lot of screaming from the rooftops, I am the best, and taking people, choking them and shaking their heads and saying, I am the best, believe me, I am the best.
Well, some would say if you tell people you're the best enough, that someone will forget that you told them, and then they'll tell someone else. So that could be the theory.
Oh, well, yeah, there seems to be a theory with a lot of media today.
Yeah.
A lot of politicians as
Yes.
well.
Yes,
Well,
I'm sure a lot of people would agree, or at least know what we're discussing right there. But
tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and hard enough, and eventually it will be accepted as truth.
right. Do you feel like you ever had a time where your ego maybe got a little too big for your britches and you had to check yourself? Or do you think that you've always kind of had the ability to see yourself from a different perspective to keep that down?
I was blessed in this lifetime with enough insecurity to keep me humble.
I feel
to
the
keep
same
me-
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
never
it's
felt
like-
like I was the best ever.
No. I am blessed with having fun with what I do and recognizing it for what it is. And if there's another person who wants my work, who thinks that what I do is great and they need to have something from me, that's even better.
I mean, it's the ultimate compliment for someone to want to get tattooed by you.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also easy to lose sight of that because you do it every day. You know, every client you deal with has made that same decision. So
Right.
it's hard to keep it in perspective that each and every person is choosing you to do it.
Well, I mean, you look at the tattoo world now, and there are tattoo shops all over the place. And in that regard, water does seek its own level. People will find a studio and an artist they're comfortable with. And some people stay with one artist forever. And other people shop around. They collect. And I think that's great. I think you not only have to like the person's work, but it's helpful if you like the personality of the one who is tattooing you.
Because the experience is so much a part of it. And I think it takes maybe getting a few tattoos to realize that sometimes.
Well, I tell people that I have seen absolutely horrible tattoos that the person wearing them just treasured because it was such a huge part of their life at that point in time. And I have seen people with fairly beautiful tattoos that had such a wretched experience with the artist that they'd rather cover it up than have to remember that time.
I see that a lot with, like, older guys will come in and they'll have their top of the forearm, like Popeye tattoo, and their upper arm tattoo. And they got it, who knows when, in the military from some, like, old-time tattooer that we all revere now, and we all trace their flash and think that they're the greatest ever. And then they want it redone or covered up. We're just like, are you sure you want to do that? Why do you want to cut? And it's such a cool tattoo, but it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to them as it means to us, because they just walked into a shop and got a tattoo that they picked off the wall. And it may not represent what they want on their forearm anymore.
Well, I guess that's where before and after photos come in handy.
Yeah, right.
You could hang on to that rare and valuable collector's item.
Right, and then destroy it in 2 hours.
It's gone.
But yeah, I think it's a struggle to stay humble as a tattooer now, and it may be because of social media and the way that we receive praise all the time, not just from our customers anymore, which can also be enough to inflate our egos and make us feel more important in our own minds. But when now you do the tattoo, your client tells you how great you are and pays you, and then sometimes gives you more money than you ask for, which makes you feel even cooler because they're just bleeding money and they couldn't be happier. And then you post a photo online, and then hundreds of people tell you how amazing it is and how great you are. It's like everywhere you turn, you're being validated in almost an unhealthy way. That I can only imagine for someone to start tattooing in that universe, that it can be very difficult. And also with the fact that tattooers are like on television as like stars,
Right.
and they're considered like celebrities, which is crazy. That it's almost like playing in a band. The interest in becoming a tattooer can come from the same place in people. Someone who just wants to be famous or who wants to be on television or whatever it may be, that they're looking to be the greatest ever. And there's almost no chance for that type of person to ever stay humble.
Well, some lessons take more than one lifetime to learn.
That's true. That is true. What form do you think someone might be in a previous life to that? A turtle?
Don't get me started talking about that. I'll talk your ear off.
Well, I'm interested in what you would think. Let's say an unhumble, shitty tattooer in their next life. What do they deserve? Another chance? Or do they deserve one lifetime of being forced to be humbled as a worker bee?
That's a really, really interesting question. I think it would depend on the intent of the shittiness of the tattooing, because if the person thought he was rendering a service and he had a clientele who thought that he was actually doing really well and he made people happy, then is the intent. Is he intentionally marking people up and doing a horrible job during that lifetime? It's the intent of the act.
True. So I guess what sort of wisdom, if let's say someone was working with you or you were teaching someone a tattoo and you identified their lack of humility, but you knew that their intent was in the right place, what sort of advice could you give to someone like that? Other than the obvious, like, shape up.
Well, there's always the NCIS bitch slap upside the back of the head. That works.
But unfortunately, it's 2019, so we can't do that anymore.
Darn. Oh, well, let's see. Yeah, it's just, a few words of wisdom, like, don't get too far ahead of yourself, because generally when you're involved in ego, there is a comeuppance right around the corner, whether it's karmic in nature or just, whatever kind of energy, and it will help you learn. I mean, because we're put here to solve problems and find creative solutions to situations. That's why we're here. I had a revelation about that. Don't get me started talking about it. I'll talk your ear off. But we're here for problem solving and solution finding. And that's why we're given so many problems, big and small. I mean, it's sort of presented to us in a fractal kind of way where you have little teeny tiny ones and really, really, really big ones. And, somebody can cruise along with great ego. And sometimes it's fun. Sometimes they're just having so much fun with it, and they don't have any malice or intent behind it in that regard. But part of the learning is that it will happen to you. And sometimes it's just a quiet revelation. It's like, oh shit, I've been a real jerk. Or, oh, this guy's doing it so much better. Oh, I have to learn that. I'm not as good as I thought I was.
And maybe that's where the separation comes. If someone truly has good intent versus someone who doesn't have good intent, that when that happens, that's where the split in the road comes. Because if you have good intention and something shows or tells you that regardless of your intent, it's not happening the way you think it is, then you're going to think about it. But if you just don't give a shit, then you're doomed anyway. But what about your revelation? How did it affect the way that you work, or was it more of like a lifestyle?
Well, I mean, it was spiritual in nature, so it just made me more spiritual in my tattooing, in terms of I am a conduit. I have been given the gift of a lot of talent, a lot of creativity, and I'm here where I belong. I was not blessed with an overabundance of, smarts. I'm not, I don't think I'm Mensa level genius. And I have been around Mensa level genius people who were wobbling that line between genius and madness. And they mostly had bad drug and alcohol problems. And it was sad to watch because you knew they had so much to offer. But at the same time, they couldn't live their lives normally. I mean, I've seen that happen not only in the tattoo community, but, across the spectrum of society.
It's almost a curse.
It is.
Because you can't have it all.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad I was only blessed with the modicum of intelligence that I have, not enough to get myself in serious trouble.
Yeah, I would always rather have skill over smarts, I guess,
Yeah.
to put it that way, because I feel like it's more useful.
Yes.
Because if your mind is racing so crazily and so full and just so much coming in and out all the time that you almost can't be a normal person socially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's true from my observation of certain people. Not everybody, but
Sure.
I've seen it, and the energy is just so frantic.
It's hard to channel it, to put it in the right places,
Yeah.
because you're always on to the next thing. Or not that I would know. I'm not intelligent almost at all.
Well, I see so much amazing work. Like I remember when I encountered Guy Aitchison for the first time, long time ago, back at one of the Mad Hatter's tea parties, and I just thought, this is a fucking boy genius.
Yeah, on a total different wavelength.
Oh my gosh, I have been just so thrilled to see his work ever since, because it was so incredibly radically different, and I love that I can be in amazement. I love that I'm finally at a place where I can see all this incredibly beautiful work and not want to throw away my tattoo machines and stomp off and hide under a blanket. It's like I'd rather live in celebration of it.
And I think that's when you'll get the most out of it, when you can see it that way and take it for what it is and not feel like why am I not that too?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I am what I am. Or like Tom Robbins says, I sweet potato what I sweet potato.
Well, are there any other quips that you'd like to leave the world with? I guess because a lot of people who write me that listen to the show, it's a lot of younger tattooers and a lot of people who say that they really enjoy the what they can get from listening and the opportunity to, through listening, to sit down with you in a way and hear some stuff. So are there any stories or anything that you'd want to impart? Not to put you on the spot. A lifetime of stories. Quick, pull one up.
Right, pull one up. No, I already told you about the Sheena the Gorilla Girl.
I think that was a perfect place to start, too. It's funny because it kind of came full circle later in the conversation, which I don't know if either of us expected.
Well, the thing I appreciate about having had that experience is, just the carny aspect of the sideshows. And there's still so much a popular element of that in our world, in the tattoo industry. Mm-hmm. And it's very familiar and comfortable. And that's knowing that that's a part of it. It's not too cerebral. It's fun. And I enjoy that.
Do you think that there's a level of illusion to being a tattooer always?
Oh, totally.
I've always felt that way too. In a lot of ways. I mean, there's the visual illusions that we're creating, like you've described. But then also I can think of times where I've had to make the illusion that I'm totally confident doing someone's tattoo when I may not be. And it turns out okay, and then maybe you actually gain some of that confidence.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
That can happen. Fake it till you make it.
Right. Within reason.
And within reason.
These are people's bodies after all.
Right. Well, within your own comfort zone.
Sure. Yeah, I've always liked that allusion to it. And it's funny because I think I've always been drawn to magic in some way too. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a conduit to tattooing that I've never really made the connection to, because I've discussed a lot about how music or skateboarding or graffiti or certain things are like the path that a lot of people have taken to get into tattooing.
Right.
But you've taken the path from the illusion world.
Well, magic was described to me one time as the act of creating change through non-physical means. And I always really liked that because I thought, wow, all these people who are praying, they don't really know that they're doing an act of magic, by that definition. And so the faking it till you make it part, it's like, okay, put on this mantle of confidence. But yet within that, can you still say, okay, I don't really know how to do this, and maybe I need to pass that job along to somebody else?
That's the other side of the balancing act.
Exactly. Well, I refer all lettering to John Doerr because he is so precise, so amazingly perfect. And I've always thought that my lettering just sucked really bad. And my whole philosophy is that I want the work coming out of here to look exquisite.
Sure.
I don't want somebody to have just an okay tattoo. I would like for them to have an exquisite tattoo.
Right.
And people will say, but I want you to do it. And I'll say,
get something else.
No, you don't. You really don't. Trust me when I tell you.
Right. Well, isn't it funny when someone will contact you and say, "Oh, I've looked at your portfolio. I love your work. I love what you do. Can you do this?" And what this is not what you do at all.
Oh, I get that all the time.
What's up with
It's
that?
like, in what world is this looking like that? And I'll just say, no, you know what? That's a job for Chris, or that's a job for John. Or, I can intuit who would be best at that particular project. And I tell people up front, I match the artist in the project. If I don't think I can do it well, or it's not something that I will do, phenomenally, and I'm just not interested in it, but I know one of the guys would be, because the interest has to be there as well. That's your forward momentum, is having the interest in the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes back to just the overall experience for the customer that we were talking about before, that if you're into it, it's going to be way better for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
This was great. It was very cool to come down here, and I've been looking forward to this ever since we first touched base about it. And, yeah, that's it.
Wow.
You to bomb. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I had a great time sitting down with Juli Moon. She's the type of person that just, you feel a warm reception from the second you meet her, and she's a nice person to be around. So I had a great time talking to her. Thank you again, Juli, for being on the show this week. If you want to check out what she does, you can go to julimoonstudio.com, and that's Juli, Juli Moon, julimoonstudio.com. She doesn't do the Instagram thing, and can we blame her? I certainly don't. As always, I'm Andrew Stortz, and you can follow me on Instagram at Andrew Stortz, Stortz. I want to once again thank our sponsors this week, Tattoo Smart and Tattoo Shirt of the Month Club. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. I beg of you, please do this. I ask it every week, and you haven't done it yet. It just takes a second. I need it. I need your help. Do it for me, your buddy, your pal, Andrew. If you want to learn more about Books Closed, you can go to our website at booksclosedpodcast.com, where you can find all the information about every episode we've ever done, and videos and merch. You can buy some sick-ass Books Closed shirts. Doesn't that sound good? Now it's time to announce the winner of the Books Closed Tattoo Smart giveaway for a $500 gift card to TattooSmart.com and some Books Closed swag. And the winner is entry number 1794, Corey Rusgrove. Thanks, Corey, for entering, and you are the winner. You'll hear from me soon, and we'll figure out how to get you all of your prizes. Thank you so much to Tattoo Smart for making this giveaway possible, and for all of you who entered. Now, next week, we'll have a very riveting episode that I hope you'll be back to check out. And if not, who needs you? See you next week.